Stop it. Stop it right there. The jury has decided and found you, the defendant, guilty of being too nice. Your act of kindness will now cost you thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars.
No, let go of my microphone. What is going on?
She's a house guest who has overstayed her welcome.
Is her name on the lease?
Her name is not on the lease.
Living out of Wendy Bear's Irvine apartment for months, sleeping on her living room floor, refusing to leave.
I should leave.
Yes,
after all the things you've done to me.
But this isn't your apartment. Back in February, Wendy says an old neighbor named Anne Marie Lynch called her up and asked her if she could come stay with her for a few weeks when she moved back to California from Florida.
She told me that the people she was living with at the time were crazy and they were stealing her belongings and she was desperate for a place to go.
Wendy says the deal was for Anne Marie to only stay a month, but when 4 weeks passed, she says she showed no signs of leaving.
Now, this was coming from someone who's personally benefited from having various friends allow me to crash at their crib throughout the couple months as I paid off $12,000 of business credit card debt and saved up to get my own apartment. For a while, I was couch surfing because I had built up a massive amount of credit card debt due to a business venture. It wasn't consumer debt, but it was like business debt that I couldn't recoup the cost from. It was like essentially Amazon FBA. So the business debt is essentially what it cost me to get into credit card debt. So essentially I started couch surfing because I wanted to use the money I was paying towards rents to quickly get myself out of credit card debt, because I didn't want that on my record or have to deal with student loan debt and also credit card debt, you know what I'm saying? So I stopped living in apartments and started couch surfing and using the money I was making or I was getting to pay the credit card debt quicker. But real talk though, much love to all my homies that allowed me to use their living space, use their extra bedroom or extra couch to sleep in while I was going through my shit. Y'all are the real MVPs. I appreciate y'all to the highest degree. No capping whatsoever. So I see both sides of the topic. Now, typically, when you miss a rent payment, especially when it's consecutive months, the landlord is quick to file a 14, 30, or 60-day eviction notice. If you haven't moved out within that time span, then the court system and police become involved. Now, what the eviction moratorium has done is essentially freeze rent payments by tenants whose income has been affected by the pandemic and various lockdown procedures. Governments in Canada, the UK, America, and many others had the moratorium with the added intention of curbing the spread of corona by not having thousands of people evicted at the same time and overcrowding various places such as homeless shelters. Now, some landlords have been able to finesse the system and essentially find loopholes or just simply take legal action during these government-imposed eviction moratoriums.
Total advantage of that.
Their landlord, Bill Stanek, used a loophole in the CDC's eviction moratorium, something that was supposed to protect Williams and her boyfriend, Daniel Christian, after they lost their jobs due to the pandemic.
We thought we were good, and then we got another letter to appear in court. He wasn't asking for restitution or saying we were behind. He just terminated our lease and evicted us.
Instead of evicting a tenant because of unpaid rent, which is not allowed, Stanek is removing renters because their leases were up, and he decided not to renew them.
Now, it's unlikely that after a year of essentially no rent payments, that most tenants will be able to pay an adequate amount of the back rent owed to landlords. At the very least, the landlord is likely to evict the current tenant and replace them with someone who can pay rent while using their property. Many tenants may struggle to find an adequate and safe living space if a substantial amount of their pre-pandemic income doesn't return.
It's a panoramic. We need our money. We need it now.
And especially if their credit score has been negatively affected by the eviction notice reported to credit bureaus by the landlord on their credit report. Overall, the minimum needed to rent most apartments seems to be about $620 to $650, and some places their lowest is $700. So credit scores definitely affect your ability to rent in certain environments, in certain areas. It's tough. And now, this is where you and your lovely home come into the picture.
When she learned the only way to remove a guest is to treat them like a tenant. Eviction.
And I had a knock at my door, and there was this young man, 30s, wanting to trim trees off my roof.
That young man is Corey Looper from Oklahoma. Sherry told Looper no tree trimming, but she could use some other work around the yard.
You can finish trimming the hedges for me.
Which led to more work around her home. Shortly into the job,
And he claimed heat stroke, so I gave him some coconut water and fixed him a smoothie
and told Looper he could crash on her couch for a few days.
and get his strength back.
When Looper's brother and wife showed up later that week, Sherry said they could stay for a bit too, but that bit turned into a week.
I got woken up in the middle of the night with him screaming and yelling and arguing.
She called the cops and told everyone to leave.
Corey said, you can't kick us out unless you get us legally evicted. You invited us and we can stay as long as we want. The police were there when he said this, and the police were, yep, he's right.
Austin Police Officer Destiny Silva says she often sees this type of case.
So what criminal trespass is when you are in a location or you stay at a location without effective consent from the owner. When you have a guest stay over or you allow someone in your home, if you decide that you don't want them there any longer, you have to go through the eviction process.
I sunk my heart into that house. I raised my boys there as a single mother. They're 38 and 40 now.
Just wouldn't leave. Her predicament started with a heartfelt gesture. Along this trail near the Linthicum light rail stop, Mary, a trauma nurse, saw a homeless couple in sleeping bags on these benches. Anne Arundel County police officers were trying to get them to move along. Mary stepped in, offering shelter to Chris Hines and his fiancée, Lacey Terry, who is 6 months pregnant.
If something crosses my path, you know, I have a home. I can help you. I can get you on your feet. I've been homeless. I know it can be circumstantial.
Mary thought it would be temporary. She says the couple agreed to pay rent of $100 a week, but in 3 months, she only received $200. There was a dispute. Things became tense, and she wanted the couple out, but they wouldn't leave and called police.
I thought, thank God the police are coming. I thought, thank God. You know, I was trying to handle this. I'm trying to help somebody. Being patient, beyond patient.
She put our stuff out on the street and told her we didn't have nowhere to go, so we called the police. They said that we had to stay here.
Mary was stunned. Police told her she didn't have any right to put the couple out. They had residency rights because their clothes and personal items were in the home for more than 30 days, and the U.S. Postal Service had delivered mail to them at that address.
It's not a criminal matter when you've allowed somebody to be in your house and they just won't leave.
And if you throw them out,
believe it or not, the person who throws them out could be liable. You could be liable for their property. It's an illegal eviction.
Mary went to court to start a legal eviction. She gave the couple notice to vacate. Days later, they decided to go ahead and leave. Now, you said that you are definitely leaving. You're packing up today.
Yes, yeah, that's what we're here. We're packing up. We'll be gone in the next 2.5 hours.
Your next question might be, how long can a guest stay in your home before they are not considered a tenant? Well, I'm glad you asked. This phenomenon seems to happen to a lot of people, as is evident in various subreddit threads. It's crazy stories, crazy horror stories. The first horror story goes as follows. Awful guests won't leave. Have established residency. My roommate and I used Airbnb to offset the increase in our rent since we were covering the summer alone while waiting for our new roommate to move in. We got a couple who claimed to be moving to the area from Maryland, who had reserved a month and 19-day stay. Key factor, okay? After 33 days, we contacted Airbnb and explained all the issues we were having, and Airbnb agreed to cancel their stay. They received notice on the 35th day that they would need to be out by Monday, yesterday. However, they are refusing to leave and say that we cannot make them leave as they have established residency since they have quote-unquote lived at our apartment for over 30 days. I have felt unsafe in our apartment. 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and I've stayed in my room hiding for most of the last week before we tried to cancel. Now that they refuse to leave, I have packed and left. I fear that these people are crooks and unpredictable. Is there anything I can do to get them out? I called the cops and asked. I was told I have to go to court to go through the official eviction process, and they need 30 days notice. These people don't follow our house rules, have driven up our utility bills, and have been hostile towards me.
People lie, cheat, steal, disappoint?
Yeah, they're hypocrites. You know, they tell you what they think you want to hear. Now, I don't fall into that category.
As y'all can see, these things are not an anomaly and can happen to even the kindest of us all. And the next horror story goes as follows. My cousin did not renew his lease in January because he's being transferred out of the country in May. His plan was to put his big stuff in storage and live with his girlfriend until then so he could save money on a month-to-month lease. But they broke up 2 days before he was supposed to move in. Literally, without a place to live, I told him he could crash on the futon in my spare bedroom for, quote-unquote, a day or two. That's how it usually starts. That's how they get you. Until he could find longer-term living arrangements off of Craigslist or something. He agreed and promised he would find something in a couple days. It's now been almost 4 weeks. He was promising every day that he was going through Craigslist to find a room to rent. He didn't want to rent a motel because that would have been more expensive than his previous month-to-month lease. I came home early last night only to find him smoking pot, smoking the ganja, the weed, the ganja, cannabis.
Stay off the weed. Stay off the damn weed. And they don't listen.
Mary Jane. I'm done. And playing Xbox when he said he was going to be meeting with several people last night about some rooms he supposedly found on Craigslist. We argued and he admitted that he hasn't been looking. He offered to pay me some rent to stay in my spare room if I wanted. I do not want. I do not want. He smokes weed all the time, even when I've told him repeatedly not to. Eats my food, and I want him out. I never agreed. He said that he is not a resident, and I can't kick him out unless I go through the process. And by the time I do, it would be May, when he's leaving the country anyway. Look at rhyme. And I might as well take some rent from him. Is this true? He was just a house guest that I agreed to let stay for a couple days until he found somewhere. But I suspect this was his plan all along. Do I really have to give him 60 days notice and then go through the courts when he refused to move out? He said that if he fights the eviction, and he said he would, that it would take more time than he needs to have a place to stay. So it would be pointless to me to do that and expensive for me to do that, and that I might as well just let him pay me some rent. What do I do? How can a house guest just become a resident when there was no intention by me, the homeowner, to allow him to become one? I'm tempted to call the cops and report his marijuana use, but I'm worried that it might splash back onto me, even though I don't drink, smoke, or use drugs at all. I live in SoCal. It is important to note that your friend, coworker, cousin, whoever, isn't trespassing. A person commits the crime of trespassing by entering or remaining in a property or certain land in certain area without expressed written permission, or oral permission, so to speak. Now, if you accept money for allowing them to stay at your crib, that instantly creates a landlord-tenant relationship, even though you might be a tenant yourself. Also, allowing them to receive official mail at your property may be another thing that can instantly create that landlord-tenant relationship and entitle them to eviction protection.
It's an evil world we live in, but hey, I'm gonna keep living and loving life.
In a previous video where I talked about the hidden cost of moving in or living with your boyfriend or girlfriend, I talked about how you need to speak to a family lawyer in your local area to have a cohabitation agreement in place before moving in together, in the event that you guys live with each other for a long period of time and ultimately become a common law couple. And if you guys break up, he or she may be entitled to some of your own personal net worth, essentially, and qualify for palimony, which is alimony but rather for non-married couples who've been living together for, I believe, 3 years or longer. So always call a lawyer. Likewise, when considering having someone spend time in your home, call up an eviction, landlord, or tenant attorney in your local area to finalize an agreement beforehand that states all the terms and conditions of the stay. Put things in writing from the start. Don't leave them up in the air, or else you'll be in despair. Thank you, thank you. Look a bar for you lot. Just in general, it is always good to consult a lawyer before making any major moves. It's a Google search away, and your negligence now will ultimately lead you back to them eventually.
Nigga, you gotta be ashamed of yourself, nigga. Real talk, you gotta be ashamed of yourself. All as you is.
Now, in New York, if you allow a guest to stay at your place for more than 30 days, at that juncture, if you want them to leave, you must file a 30-day eviction notice with a lawyer. See what I mentioned before? And possibly go through the eviction court process, which can take upwards of 3 to 6 months to finalize. Tough.
Hey, bro, come on now, dawg. Come on, man.
In California, an Airbnb host learned about the tenant and landlord laws the hard way when she approved a 44-day stay at her Airbnb property. The guest got tenants' rights after 30 days, as is the law in California, and refused to leave until she went through the dual process of eviction.
I hope the world can see now what's really going on out here, because it's getting ridiculous. It's really ridiculous.
Now, if you are looking to rent and you keep getting denied for various quality apartments due to either not having enough finances saved up to get a security deposit or due to bad credit, I'd highly recommend going down the Airbnb path. Living in Airbnbs for long-term stays is definitely beneficial as you seek to get your finances in order, improve your bad credit, and save up an emergency fund. You'll probably have to move every other month or so and interchange between 2 or 3 places, but it can help you still have a comfortable place in a good environment for the money you paid, without having credit history or security deposits affect your ability to live in that place. I made a whole video on it. Definitely check it out, because I went through the whole process, right? Living in Airbnbs, living at my friends' couches, and living in homeless shelters, just so that I wasn't bothering my friends too much, and so that I could save up to even get to the Airbnb in the first place. Now, in Ontario, Canada, Toronto and Ottawa to be specific, the tenant/landlord law dilemma is evident in this subreddit. The person says, and I quote, "My parents are running an Airbnb out of their basement apartment, and a guest with good reviews requested a longer stay, 1 month minimum, but may want to book up to 3 months. As the guest is hoping to find a long-term rental in the area, move to the city for work. My parents are not interested in becoming landlords and asked me to look into how they are able to have the guest stay without falling into a legal issue of eviction if the guest decides not to leave. Also, if they break up the guest stay, have them stay for 3 weeks and take 1 week off, etc., then another 3 weeks on with the same guest, are they legally avoiding becoming landlords? What if the guest asks my parents to store some belongings during the 1 week they are asked to find another accommodation?" Someone says, "Generally speaking, rentals of 30 days or more are covered by the RTA. RTA is essentially Ontario's Residential Tenancy Act, so like an eviction protection, right? So that 1 month renter could be entitled to all the protections granted tenants in Ontario, including the fact they could stay as long as they want." So I think he's onto something here though, right? Allowing them to stay for maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks at a time, telling them to go somewhere else, to not leave any possessions, and then they can come back, just so that you can avoid all the issues with being a landlord. But again, talk to a lawyer, eviction lawyer, landlord or tenant lawyer, just to be sure, and set the terms of their stay beforehand. And in another subreddit, the person says, and I quote, "I'm running Airbnb and so far so good. I've had 3 guests each staying for 2 weeks at a time, but lately my mailbox has gotten swamped with long stay requests like 28 days, 30 days, etc. My question, is how many consecutive days under Ontario, Ottawa, Canadian tenancy laws does someone like this become an actual tenant? These people all have like 0 or 1 star feedback points, and I'm super worried they're just scammers that are running out of CERB and want to bunker down for the winter. That's CERB, you know? I don't know how y'all in the States survive, man. Man's in Canada, we got like what, $14,000 in terms of support payments for the year? Not bad, you know what I'm saying? But the fact that they have 0 and 1 star reviews definitely does not help the scenario whatsoever. Definitely a red flag. Edit. Just to clarify, for some people who might not understand the implication of tenancy, what I'm trying to avoid is having someone come in, pay for their first 30 days, become a tenant under the law due to the duration of their stay, and the fact that money has changed hands, and then be legally protected from eviction over the winter, and basically live in my house for 4, 5, or maybe 6 months for free, before I can run through the entire process in the courts. It's a common scam in the US. Not sure how prevalent it is here in Canada. Someone says under the comments says, you should call the LTB. The LTB is essentially the Landlord and Tenant Board. I'm sure if you just search it in your area, Landlord Tenant Board, Florida, Landlord Tenant Board, Ontario, Landlord Tenant Board, British Columbia, London maybe, or wherever else, you'll get a more specific result for your area, to be sure. But I think as long as they book through the site, you are covered, as it has defined dates and does not automatically renew, unlike month-to-month leases that do. If anyone offers to pay you more to book outside the platform though, I would adamantly refuse. And if for some reason you do end up with someone refusing to leave, you need to call the police and say you have an uninvited guest who's refusing to leave. Never refer to them as a tenant, as they aren't. They are paying guests. So overall, the general consensus is about 30 days to establish tenancy rights if they were previously a guest. And for my mandem and galdom in the UK, for some reason I found no concrete answer. I went through, I went through bare blogs, bare subreddits, stuff like that. I didn't really find an answer.
Sheldon, when was the last time you got any sleep?
I don't know, 2, 3 days, not important. I don't need sleep. I need answers. I need to determine where in this swamp of unbalanced formulas squatteth the toad of truth.
But simply Google landlord tenant attorney, or I guess your equivalent is solicitor. See how sexy that sounds? Solicitor. Cookies, biscuit. But yeah, simply Google landlord tenant attorney or lawyer or solicitor in the UK near me. Call them up, maybe pay a little fee if need be. But that little, maybe $50, $10, or maybe it is free, will save you thousands of dollars in health, stress, and actual money down the line. But regardless of where you live, that's where you want to go to get concrete, by the book information. You're going to end up needing them anyways if you don't do it by the book or if you don't do it accurately. So you may as well do it now. And if you really want to help your friend, co-worker, cousin, help yourself first by making sure you're good. You can't pour from an empty cup, you know what I'm saying?
Just for that, I'm gonna spend my whole childhood eating what I want and doing drugs when I want. Whatever, I do what I want.
No, wait!
We all have to plan for the worst, but expect the best. So although I personally, never really try to stay at my friends' places too long, I would either be at their crib, be at a shorty's crib, or be at a homeless shelter. I try not to, when someone's in your space, it's not the best look, right? So I try not to stay there at all, if need be, just to respect their space. But other people might have malice intent, or other intentions, and may use or abuse your kindness. So this is a PSA and warning, given the Reddit stories I've shared and the news outlets videos you've seen as well here. But the bottom line is to have a written agreement in place before you do certain major actions, especially when it comes to allowing people into your living space. But one word is enough for the wise, so be wise. If you make a mistake now, I told you so. I don't want to say it, but I told you so. But while you lot are here, yeah, man them, gal them, watch my past video right here on the hidden cost of moving in or living with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Cohabitation, prenup, palimony, and all that stuff. Watch that video right here. Or watch my other video right here on how you can live in Airbnbs, maybe for like 21 weeks at a time at a certain place, right? Despite having bad credit or an eviction on your record. And as always, if it doesn't feed you, don't water it. And too much of any good thing is good for nothing. How you lot doing today? Man them, gal them, say it with me. I'm doing more, saying less, and keeping that same energy. No cap. Flip the script. I'm out. Deuces.
Them. We just let our actions do the talking, do this often. They made mistakes and now it's really gonna cost them. Straight out our top, no little fish, you don't want problems. We weren't gonna ride, but broski said we gotta stop them. What's your way?